Hey everyone, this is Leanne from Of Love and Shiplap and the founder of Sublimation Graphics and Tutorials here on Facebook. If you're joining us on YouTube, please be sure to come join our Facebook group where all of our videos air live before they're added to our YouTube channel unedited. And if you're catching us live on Facebook, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Those links are in the video description depending on where you're watching. Today, we're going to be showing you how to create and use PNG masks with Affinity Designer. Now, for those of you who don't know, Affinity Designer is a vector-based graphic design program, and it is absolutely perfect for anyone who cannot draw. I see a lot of people who think that Procreate and Photoshop are the answer, but the truth is that if you can't draw, those programs are going to be minimal use for you. A vector-based program like Affinity Designer or Adobe Illustrator is much more realistic for anyone who knows that they can probably piece together shapes and work with that and shading and all the tools that are available, but cannot freehand draw easily. And don't feel bad if that's you, because that's me too. I cannot freehand draw, but that's why I love vector art, because you can create so many cool things without needing to be able to draw it. Affinity Designer is the #1 program that we do demos on in this group because it has a very affordable one-time license fee, a really user-friendly interface, and it's not a heavy software, so you don't need a high-end gaming laptop to be able to use it. So we highly recommend this program. And at the time of this video, they are currently offering a 90-day free trial. Their normal free trial period is 15 days. But either way, with a $50 one-time licensing fee, it's kind of hard to beat this particular program for something that is feature rich. Now, if you want to get a good feel for the program, be sure to check out our Intro to Affinity Designer video that's linked in the description. And you can find all of our other videos that we've done on Affinity Designer underneath the Affinity Designer playlist on our YouTube channel or the Affinity Designer guide under our Facebook group, Sublimation Graphics and Tutorials. And of course, last but not least, if you missed our big announcement last week, we are launching an Affinity Designer digital graphic design masterclass specifically tailored for the garment printing industry. That's sublimation, white toner, DTG, DTF. This is mostly geared towards sublimation, but everything that you are going to want to ever learn is crammed into this masterclass. There's over 50 hours of content and 15 modules. The module outline is in the description for that with the early bird pricing that's available until 5/24/2021. So you got just about a week left. If you want to get that early bird pricing, definitely run on over to the link in the description and get that. And of course, if you're catching this after, sorry you missed out on the early bird pricing, but either way, you'll find not only the full course description there with a breakdown of the 15 different modules and what's covered in each module, but you will also find the live Q&A link that we did in our Facebook group. So be sure to check that out. If you find tonight's video easy to follow, and you check out some of our other videos and you're really interested in just getting that in-depth knowledge so that you can really create all of your own graphics, whether it is for finished products or to sell. Today, I'm going to be working in Affinity Designer on a Windows computer. If you're using the Mac or the iPad version, some of your tools might be laid out a little bit differently. You can always refer to the Affinity Designer website. That's affinity.serif.com to be able to get a better idea of where certain tools might be moved around. But for everyone else, if you're following along with Windows Computer, this should be pretty easy. So as I mentioned, we're going to be going over how to create and use PNG masks. Now, what this refers to is the document format, a PNG, and a mask is just sort of a fancy word to say clipping something inside of something else. Now, PNG masks serve a lot of uses, especially on substrates like coffee mugs and Christmas ornaments and t-shirts. And those are really what I want to focus on. One of the benefits of using a PNG mask is that you can take a graphic, whether it's something you've compiled or whether it is a like a picture or photograph, and you can add a distressed edge or a soft focus edge, something so that it doesn't look so harsh on your finished product. And believe it or not, this small technique of creating a softer edge can do wonders for the professionalism of your finished product. So let's go ahead and get started, and then I'll show you an example of what I'm talking about, and we'll get to work learning how to create our own. It's really easy, and I know you guys are going to love learning this. So I'm going to actually start with an artboard this time. So I'll go File and New. And the reason why I'm going to use an artboard is because I'm just going to check Create Artboard right there, is so that I can have multiples and be able to show you the different things that we're doing all in one. So I'm just going to go ahead and select Create Artboard. If you are printing for sublimation or designing for sublimation, you want to make sure your color format is RGB/8 with your document profile being this. Now, the format that you are setting up here in your program for your document is completely different than any printer profile. So please don't confuse the two. If you are printing for DTG, DTF, white toner, or screen print, then you will use the CMYK/8. And if you are just trying to create digital graphics to sell and you don't know what the end person will be using, you'll still use RGB/8 because they can convert it to the CMYK. It's not really that serious. So we'll go ahead and hit create, and we've got our first artboard. Now let me just give you some examples so you know what we're talking about. So I'm just going to hit File and then Place, and I'm going to import 2 pictures. Okay, let me move these off of here so you can see them a little bit better. So first up, we have some coffee mugs that I made last year for Christmas. And you can see this first one, I did make the edges a little soft on the side, but then it has a really harsh bottom here, versus this one where I did the soft focus all the way around. Now, aesthetically, this one with the soft focus all the way around is a lot better than this one is with the harsh edge for a couple of different reasons. Now, if you have a harsh line and you're on the bottom of a mug, it's not so bad. But we see a lot of people who their mug press maybe doesn't fit all the way, or their paper doesn't fit all the way, and then they have a harsh line that's just before the top, and it just doesn't look as professional. So adding something that's sort of soft focus like this can really make a big difference in items like MDF ornaments, coffee mugs, and t-shirts, like I mentioned before. Now, our second set of graphics here. These I snagged from the Yellow Crayons Facebook page. If you're not familiar with our friends at Yellow Crayons, they are a brick and mortar direct-to-garment print shop here in Fayetteville, North Carolina. They are wonderful and a lot of fun. And they do on-demand printing. They call it a Build-A-Bear t-shirt shop. And you can actually order bulk items if you want to be able to offer bulk full color printed dark and cotton garments. So definitely reach out to them if that's something that you are looking for. But I did ask for their permission to use a couple of their photos because they use this distressed edge, as you can see here, on a lot of their shirts. And compared to this other one where it's a straight edge, you can see a huge difference in the aesthetics that this type brings. Now, of course, you're not always going to be able to compete with your customers. Sometimes they're just going to want a straight edge and a straight photo. But if you can guide them towards something that is this nice distressed edge, it definitely makes it look better on a shirt and on a coffee mug, license plates, anything where you need to use a photo or something that has a full background like this clip art graphic here. It definitely helps to use some sort of a PNG mask to create that distressed edging look. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that off of there, and we will get started. So there are a few different ways in which you can create a PNG mask. So let's start with the basic way. The simplest way that you can do it and the easiest is to combine different shapes or elements to create that mask. Now, when I say shapes or elements, I am referring to your shape tools over here. If you were to click on this, you'd see you've got lots of options here. So if you wanted to make something with a scalloped edge, for example, you could take your cloud tool and you could kind of stretch it out like this. And if you just wanted to make it like partly scalloped, like you wanted to do a rectangle over, I'm going to double click those and change them to black so they're easier to see. So let's say that you wanted this to be your pattern. You could take your two shapes just like this, click and drag, and add them together. So this only works if it's two curves. This does not work if you had two PNG elements or a curve and a PNG element. So it's definitely important to know what type of element you are working with. So because we use these shape tools, that is considered two curve elements. And so now we have this that could be a PNG mask, and we could go further and distress the edges. But I just wanted to show you the shape thing. Now, the method that you're probably going to use is using PNG elements such as silhouettes and things like that you might find online. So we're going to start with a rectangle because presumably we're putting this on a coffee mug or something that is square in shape. And I'm going to click on my transform panel. I just want to make sure we got our dimensions about the same. Okay. And now I'm going to add an edge to this. So I've actually imported this ripped edges into my assets panel. These were from Digital Curio. I did link this in the video description. I think these were $5. They were really cheap for this little bundle of distressed edges. So these are all individual PNGs. So when I double click on one, I can bring it in and line it up to create the kind of edge that I am looking for. Now there are a few different ones, so you can really play around with whatever one you want. Kind of like that one. So I think I'm going to get rid of this one. So I'll click on that layer and just delete that. And I'm going to use this one around all the edges. Now, if you didn't want it quite this big, you could also, you really just click and drag to bring it down. So I'm going to right click and duplicate. And I'll put another one there. And then I'm going to click and drag to select both of those. Oops. To select both of those. And I'll right click on them in our layers panel and I'll hit duplicate. And I want to put them on the other side. So I'm going to flip them horizontally so they're facing in the other direction and then just bring them on over there. And then I also want them at the top and bottom. So I will right click and select duplicate. And as long as you keep them highlighted, you can just rotate counterclockwise and put them up there. I'm going to need to stretch it out a little bit to meet the edge. That's a little too far. If you find your snapping grids, which are these lines that you see popping up, that's because of this magnet symbol up here. It says snapping, but if you find that they're hindering your ability to move your graphics around, you can always turn them off. So once again, I'm going to click and drag, and I want to just show you this really quick to help you clean up your layers panel. So you see how these are not together? If we wanted to go select them later, we might want them together. So anytime you duplicate something, you can go ahead and click on this icon here where it has the orange square on top of the two smaller ones where it says move to front. And it's automatically going to move everything that you've selected to the top of your layers panel. So if we right click that again and we hit duplicate to make our second one, and then we can go ahead and hit that move to the front. And we've got our second layer that we want for the bottom. We will flip that vertical. And get it lined up a little bit better. And you can just move these over with your cursor or with your arrow keys on your computer. All right, so now we have a distressed edge that we have made with, we started with our square or rectangle from our shape tool, and we've just added these PNG edges. Now you can find free resources for ripped edges or paintbrush elements or stroke elements. You can kind of search those different things all over the internet. I did choose to buy these ones because I really liked how they look. And if you haven't checked out the shop from the designer Digital Curio, I really do like a lot of her stuff. It's very fun. So she is a vector graphic artist, and I do really enjoy some of the stuff she puts together. So now what we want to do is we want to make this one piece to be able to clip something inside of it. So we're going to go ahead and click and drag and select all of our layers that we've put together. We're going to right click on them in the layers panel and select group. And then what I always like to do, and you don't have to do this, but I'm going to tell you this is what I like to do, is I right click and duplicate this. And then I'm going to change the name of one. And I like to name it Original Edit so that if I want to make changes in the future, I can do that, because once you do the next step, you can't make changes to the shape or anything. You can't make changes as easily to the shape and whatnot. So this is my original edit. I'm going to go ahead and lock it so it doesn't go anywhere, and I'm going to uncheck it because I don't want to see it. And then I'm going to take this second group, which still shows all of our layers as well. And once they're grouped, you right click and you select rasterize. And now you'll see it converts it to a pixel. So we can just rename this Torn Edge Mask. And you can also, when you're working in artboards, you can rename your artboards as well to make life easier for you. So I can just name this Torn Edge PNG Mask. So I'm going to leave that one there for a second. And I'm going to create another artboard. Now we can actually just right click and duplicate this and move it over, or you can click on this part and make an artboard tool and draw one. Totally up to you. So I've got my second one. I'm actually just going to move it down so that it's not confusing. I'm going to delete off what we made. And we'll just preemptively name this one Vector Brush Edge Mask, since that's what we're about to do next. So the next way to create a PNG mask is to use either your vector or raster brushes. So let's start with the vector brushes. Now with these, the vector brush tool is not like the pixel persona. This is that one here that I'll show you in just a second. It's not like that where it responds just like you're drawing. So people who use Photoshop and people who use Procreate, what they are trying to achieve is being able to draw on their screen just like they would on a piece of paper. Now, there are pros and cons to that. One of the pros is that if you do have natural drawing ability, it's pretty easy to be able to translate that over into the digital world. The con is that when you zoom in on something, you're going to see that it has pixels versus vector work, which can be resized pretty indefinitely. And it's not going to be distorted or lose any of its shape. You won't see that like pixelated edge around it. So you guys know what I'm talking about when I refer to that pixelated edge, those little squares. So in Affinity Designer, you'll find your vector brushes underneath this part that says brushes. And it does come with quite a few, like dry media, engraving, all of these ones, inks, markers, oils, pens. These are all native. The rest of these are ones that I have added, and I really do like adding different ones, mostly for outlining shapes. So once again, let's start with our shape tool. This time we'll do a circle. So I'm going to do my ellipse tool. I'm going to make a circle. I'm going to head over here to transform because I always like to make sure things are the same size. So I'll go ahead and set that to this pixel size. And now when you were working in the designer persona or vector persona, which is this one right here, or drawing persona, they've changed the name a few times, you can add a stroke automatically to the outside of your shape by clicking on the stroke panel. And then you, of course, have just straight line and dotted line. But in this case, you're going to use the textured line style. And then you're going to click on brushes and you can go ahead and apply one of these how you would like. So you see now we've got this edge here and we can click back over on the stroke panel and make sure your shape is selected and then click on the stroke panel and you can expand it if you wanted to modify it that way. And of course, you've got a few different ones that you can work with. These are all just really fun and flexible options that you can use and play around with if you were looking for something that wasn't so grunge effect. And the engraving brushes that I just showed you for the vector edge, this is naturally part of Affinity Designer, so you don't have to buy anything extra. And like I said, you've got the marker one as well. Sorry, you need to have your shape selected. So you can kind of play around with the different ones and figure out what you like. One of the ones that I really like, I've recently downloaded, is this vintage vector edge brushes. This was from I think it's called the Artix Forge. I did link the link to this on Creative Market in the video description. This particular creator, I absolutely love a lot of the brushes that they do create for Affinity Designer. They have both vector and raster brushes, and I'm pretty sure I've downloaded at least 6 or 7 of the ones that they have put together. I just feel like they're always thinking what I'm already thinking, and they put out some really great stuff. So these ones that they have are awesome for grunge textures. So if we select one of these other ones, we're gonna have to improve our stroke a little bit. You can see you'll get some of these other edges around there. Now these ones are a little bit thinner, and one of the things that you can do if you find one that you like, but maybe it's not quite thick enough for you, is you can add multiple layers. So if we click on this and we duplicate our ellipse, and we're going to take out that fill that's in the middle because we don't really need that, but we just want that outer edge, and we're going to just stretch it out just a little bit. I'll just increase it over here in my transform panel so that it's even. So now I'm just going to do outline layer 2, fill shape with outline. I'm just going to rename these so you guys have an idea of what we're talking about. So you see I just added that extra layer, just made it a hair bigger, and now I've got a much more prominent distressed edge. Okay, so once again, we're going to click and drag all of our layers that we have put together, and we're going to right click and we're going to duplicate so that we can make changes in the future. We'll hit that move to front option and group that. I know the last time I grouped first, but original edit. And then we'll just uncheck that and lock it so it doesn't get moved anywhere. And then we'll get those other two. Same thing, right click, group, right click, rasterize. And now you'll see that it's a pixel, and this is our vector brush edge mask. All right, one more here with the vector brush tools. We'll go ahead and put this over here. Now you do have the option to, I'm going to move that one down again. Once again, I just duplicated it, but I am going to remove the stuff that's on that one and rename it. This one is going to be vector background mask, and you'll see why I named that differently. Now you also have the option to just use the pen tool or the vector brush tool, similar to the way that you would use a brush in your pixel persona. But again, keep in mind that these are not going to be the same. It's not going to be as fluid. because that's just not how vector brushes work. So one of my favorite ways to do it is to take the pen tool and then just create a line and click over on brushes, and then you can choose your edge. So let's say this is the one that we choose. Oops. I'm just going to click on that. This is your node tool if you need to adjust your node. So I'm going to click on that one, and I'm just going to move it up a little bit so that this is actually straight. Okay. And then again, you can increase the stroke. And then what you can do is you can actually right click and duplicate, and you can just create a whole bunch and bring them together. And once you duplicate once, if you don't check off of it, you can kind of just keep duplicating it, and it will just keep moving itself a little bit down at a time. So you could make this whole thing into like a background swatch or a mask. This would be a little bit better for backgrounds than it is for soft edge photos, but I just want to make sure that we do cover it. There is another video, two videos actually, one on how to create swatches, which uses this technique for those striped swatch backgrounds that are really popular. And then there's also one for how to create swatchy type full backgrounds, which uses the same technique as well. And then the other option that you can do is actually use that vector brush tool and then select any particular stroke. So let's go, not that one. Let's go with chunky markers. This is another one of my favorites that I have purchased. And you can just draw with it. And create a background. Now, if you don't take off the line, then it's going to stay connected. See how that is just like looping around? That is one of the differences between how vector brushes respond versus raster brushes. Okay, so this would be your next option as well if you wanted to do it that way. I don't usually ever do things this way because I want that nice finished middle and then to be able to use the back accordingly. But once again, you would just select all of this. We'll select each of your parts. You're going to right click, group together, right click, duplicate so you have your edit file. Again, you don't have to do this part. That's really just, I like to do it because without fail, I decide I want to make a change to something and I can't make it because I've already rasterized it and exported it and now it's useless to me. So we'll go ahead and right click and rasterize. This is going to be grunge stripe mask. And then this other one that we put together here, same thing. Right click in your layers panel, group, right click again and duplicate, select the second one, change this to original edit. Click on that first one again and rasterize, and then just rename it to help you. That's not really grunge, but so we're going to call it blocky background mask. All right, and then the very fourth way that you can do this, I'll just duplicate my artboard again. And I'm going to delete this off of my workspace. Oh, I didn't uncheck them in the other one, but that's okay. Okay, and then this one is going to be, we'll rename it right here. This is going to be our pixel PNG mask. Now, to work with your raster brushes or pixel-based brushes, you're going to click on the pixel persona. And now you're going to have some different editing tools that you can play around with and different brushes. So you'll have a lot more options in the pixel persona because there's just a lot more brushes available. You can see like all of these, except for the basic ones, the oil pens, markers, inks, those were the ones that came with Affinity Designer, but the rest of these are all ones that I have purchased at one point or another over the last few years. And a lot of these are better if you're trying to do backgrounds where maybe you have like a watercolor background. That's a great example of something that you can do with that. Or if you want something that looks a little bit more distressed. So we can pick this one, classic crayon. So we'll click on our paintbrush tool, and then we're going to make sure we pick whatever crayon that we want. And we want to make sure our color is black, so that's good. And then we'll just go ahead and you can draw a shape. And you can just fill these in if you're doing this freehand drawing approach to it. Now, something simple like this is not difficult to do with your computer mouse. And what's nice about the Pixel Persona is that you have access to things like being able to erase or being able to smudge areas. And all of that's covered in our masterclass pretty in depth of how to use those fun features and when is a good time to use them versus when is not. So anything that's a pixel, if you're in the Pixel Persona, you can clean it up with your tools here, like your smudge brush tool and your eraser edge. So if I click that eraser tool and I just want to clean up this little spot right here, I can do that. You cannot use your Pixel Persona tools on your vector layers. It doesn't work that way. Okay, so this is a grunge background. So we'll just do pixel grunge mask. And then now because we're in the Pixel Persona, you don't have to rasterize this. This is already ready to go. It's already a pixel layer. It says it. So the other ones we had to rasterize to make them into pixel layers, but this one, because we're in the Pixel Persona, is already a pixel layer. If you want to have a nice solid middle, you would still have to start with the shape tool and then come over. So I'll do one more and I'll show you that, and then I'll show you how to export them and then what to do with once you have them. Okay. If you're in the designer persona, which is the blue triangle again, you can use the artboard tool. So I'll just click the artboard tool and make myself a new artboard since I didn't show you that yet. So here's our last artboard. And now, like I said, we have to be in that designer persona. We'll start with some type of shape. So we'll just do a square in this case. We want to make sure it's completely filled in the middle. So I just made sure it's filled in our layers panel. And you don't have to do these in black. You can honestly do them in whatever color you want because it won't matter. Once you fill it, it's going to be filled with whatever color you fill it with. So now that you have this rectangle here, what you're going to do is click over to that Pixel Persona. And also I'm just going to drag this down to the bottom just to make it easy. So this is a solid background pixel mask. So what you're going to do now is you've already got this solid background. You'll see that there's no shape tool here for you to create a shape. So you've got this solid background and you're going to add a pixel layer to it. So we're going to hit that paintbrush tool. We're going to make sure we've got our black selected in our color panel. We're going to go over to brushes. And again, you can really choose whatever you want. Let's see what kind of fun ones I got here. I got a snowflake one, I think. I don't know if that one will be fun. So, all right, well, this is kind of a good one for a soft focus. That's a bit larger than we need it to be, though. So just change that size up there and see how big this comes in. Oops, it went inside of our rectangle. There we go. Okay, that's a little too big, so I'm just going to throw that one away. I'm going to hit new pixel layer so I make sure it's outside of my rectangle. We want it on top of it, so above it in the layers panel. Let me make this a bit smaller. There we go. All right, so now I'm kind of creating a soft focus edge. And I can go over that twice here, 3 times to make sure it really looks like it's blended well. So anytime you are checking out different types of brushes and whatnot and choosing to add them, you always want to make sure you read whether it is a vector brush or a raster brush. And if it's a raster brush, it's going to be like this, where it only shows in the pixel persona. And if it's a vector brush, it will only show in the vector persona. Now, I find uses for both, so it's always worth having both. And if you happen to also have Affinity Photo, then you can import all of the same raster brushes into Affinity Photo. So it's not like you have to buy them twice. Most of them will work in Affinity Photo. So we'll go ahead and click on our Move tool. We've got our pixel layer there. If we just uncheck our rectangle, you can see it. And then we'll recheck it. So we're going to do the same thing that we've been doing. We're going to click and drag to select both of our layers. We're going to right click on them and we're going to hit group. We're going to right click again and we're going to hit duplicate. We're going to rename that one for our original editing layer so that if later we want to make a change, we can. And then on our other one, we will right click and select rasterize, and it's going to make this one solid layer. All right. So let's go ahead and export. Anytime you're working in Artboard, you can export each individual artboard. So to do this, we're just going to go to File and then Export. And we want to choose whichever one we want. Now, if you select whole document, it is going to export everything that's on your screen as one file, which is not what you want. You want to just choose your different ones. So we'll go ahead and select the Torn Edge mask first, and we will hit Export. And that is how you would export them for future use. I'm just going to export another one. If you're already working in the file, you don't have to export them. But the purpose of exporting would be if you want to give them to someone, if you want to sell them, because you can absolutely sell these once you make them. You can make a whole set of them and sell them. In fact, Debbie from Debbie Does Design has a PNG background masking set that I'm going to use as an example in just a minute here. And that's exactly what is done. You do this. You choose your next one. So vector brush edge mask, you hit export. Save, and we have it out. And just for argument's sake, I'm going to do one more. File and then export. And then it already has it selected because I did select that one. Okay. Now you also, if you plan on working on this in the future or being able to make changes, then you do want to save your document. You just go to File and then Save As, and you can save your file. And this will be, you name it whatever you want, whatever is easy for you to remember. Okay, so now that I've saved that and I've exported a couple of them, I'm just going to exit out of this so I can show you how to use them. Now you can use them in this state, or you can use them, you know, if you were importing them into a new file. And I do want to show you that just again so that you guys know how to do it. So I'm going to exit out of this. I'm going to go to File and New, and this time I'm just going to use a regular old document. It doesn't really matter if you use a document or an artboard. Like I said at the beginning, the benefit of using an artboard is if you need to create multiple variations and you just want to be able to duplicate them so you can make different colors, for example, that you can just do it all in one like that and be able to see them tiled. So if you happen to purchase a PNG mask, you're going to go ahead and open up your new document. And then you're going to go to File and then Place. And you're going to choose a mask. So let's say that we go with this one that Debbie made. Oops. Let's try all documents. There we go. So we'll just pick any random one from here. You're then going to click and drag. Keep in mind that if you just click, it is going to import at the maximum size. So because you've exported this as a PNG, let me bring in a picture for you to use as an example. I'm going to use this picture of me from yesterday's video. The idea here is you want to clip it in. So you're going to click and drag. But you see that when I did that, it clicked into the space. See how I've got like an outline there? that's the space of your PNG. It didn't actually clip into the background. So the reason why, let me drag myself back out of there, move me over here out of the way, is because when you have something as a PNG, you have to right click on it and then click rasterize. And then you can do this again. And now it clips in. Ta-da! So if you're using the design file that you just created, everything's already in pixel mode. And just so you guys know what I'm talking about, I'm just going to open that back up. And let's say that we're in our circle one here. We will hit the place image tool or go to file and then place. We will find that great picture of me questioning the world. Oops, went onto the wrong artboard. Stick it in there. And then our one that is our vector brush edge, we'll put that over top. We will click and drag into it. Now, when you click and drag, you want to make sure that you're dragging into the name, not next to the name, in between the name and the icon, not underneath the icon, not above, not to the side. Underneath the name, you'll see this 3/4 rectangle that appears, and that's how you know that you are clipping into the right place. So you just uncheck and you've automatically created this group, and then you can kind of move your picture around however you need. You can resize it, whatever it is. So if you're working with the file that you already created, you just go ahead and click and drag in there. There's nothing else that you have to do because this is already a pixel persona. Or a pixel graphic, sorry. But if you're importing one that's a PNG, whether it's one you bought or one you made and you exported, you have to right click and rasterize. So I'm going to do this 2 more times here just so we can make sure that you guys know it. So I'm going to delete that. I'm going to hit my place image tool. I'm going to select one of the ones that we made. This grunge one sounds like a good idea. Okay. So once again, the first thing you want to do is right click and rasterize that PNG. And now you see it took away that dead space also. Then you're going to click on that place image tool or go to file and then place, select your picture, hit open, get it lined up however you want, and then click and drag it into the mask that you have underneath the name where you see this 3/4 rectangle appear. Not if you get the full rectangle, you're just going to go underneath it. If you have the full rectangle on top of it, you're just going to be on top of it. If you are to the side here, you're just going to disappear into it. So you want to go into the name. And if you just kind of drag it around, you'll see, just like you see on the screen right now, that it moves all over the place. So once you see it inside of your shape, you know that you've got it right. And again, you can then just go ahead and resize it and put it however you want. Okay. Last time. So again, we're going to hit that place image tool. We're going to choose one of the PNG masks that we made. Remember, these are the ones that we exported. So if you have exported it as a PNG, or if you purchase one like the one I just showed you from Debbie, I think that, here we go. This is hers right here. And I do have that link in the video description. She's got a whole bunch, 30 different ones. These are great for backgrounds. You can use these ones for the roughed edge photos if that's what you're looking for as well. It's great. And then I did link the other 2 resources that I showed you as well. Back over to Affinity Designer. All right. Last time, right click, rasterize, and you can do that in the layers panel as well. That's what I've been showing you, or on your document space. And then place image tool or go to file and then place. Select your picture, click and drag it into the name of your PNG masking layer. And then if you need to adjust it, just click on that down arrow and move it around however it is that you want. If you need to resize it, whatever the situation may be. And that's it. So this is how you create and use PNG masks. And as I mentioned, these are great for so many different uses. I have a whole collection of PNG masks for Christmas ornaments that I'll for sure show you guys when we do Christmas in July, but they are there if you happen to want to go get them now, that fit those Benelux ornaments that give these nice, pretty, snowflake and heart and star edges. So be sure to check those out. I did link them in the video description as well. But this is how you create PNG masks and how you would use them if you have previously purchased them. And you can use this little technique for so many different types of substrates. Be sure to check out the different brushes that I did, or the one brush pack from the Artifacts Forge, and those rich edges that I showed you from the from Digital Curio. Again, all of those links are in the video description. So if you have any questions or comments, leave them below. And once again, be sure to check out the information on our Affinity Designer Digital Graphic Design Masterclass for the sublimation printing industry. And take advantage of that early bird special if you're seeing this before May 24th, 2021. And if you happen to catch this after, be sure to check some of our favorite groups for a discount code. It'll only be eligible on the full price, those discount codes. So anyone who's watching live or seeing this before the 24th, there are none of those codes available right now because they're only applicable to the full price. Okay, so other than that, I hope you guys have a great rest of your evening, and thank you so much for joining us.